the National 2023 and you trying to sell me something, you know how it is. You come up to me and you say, Jameel, I need some cash. Here we go. How much can I get for my cards? This is going to be something that we see all the time, left and right, day and night, over 5-6 days at the National. Now, selling is not easy as you think, because you're going to the National expecting so much for your cards, and it may not be the reality of what you take home. Let me give you a couple background things here first. So I've bought and sold to the National probably for 8 years now, 8 consecutive years, and I've been a big buyer of single cards, collections, wax over the past really 15 years in the hobby. That's really what drew me to the National, is the marketplace atmosphere. And I know many of you who may see this video might be like, that's what I love about the National, is how fast it is, how quick it is, how exciting and thrilling it is. I love the fact that my heart's beating trying to get this deal done. That's a cool thing about the National, the wheeling and dealing. It is literally the stock market floor times 1,000 of the New York Stock Exchange in the late 90s, you know what I mean? But back in the day, I mean, literally all that stuff, you know, think in your mind, Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff. Think in your mind, you know, the scenes and the pictures you've seen of people everywhere. You know, a good friend of ours down south here in Orlando, Alan, does a pack wars with Topps every year. It's people going and having a frenzy there. There's some people opening and ripping. So there's so much going on at the National, and selling really can, I don't want to say make or break, but really can create a good memory for you, the National, because if you're able to sell, right, and you're able to do well in terms of, you know, your liquid, you know, making things liquid for you, you might be able to pick up some really cool pieces for your collection, or maybe you're just there to flip. So this whole video, I hope, serves as a kind of a intro to selling at the National. So when you sell, what's the goal? This is, I think, the question you've got to ask yourself. What is my goal when I take this card, or here's a Bowman Chrome University pack, this card, and I try and get something back for it? What is the goal? Is it quick funds? Because that might be your goal. You may come to the National and you want liquidity, you want resource, you want spending power. That's what your goal is. Great. You probably know what you want for your lot and what you're willing to take for it, or your singles, and you're going to be good with that. I would say you're probably in your mind thinking, if you're wanting to blow stuff out in that 50 to 70, maybe, you know, 50 to 65% kind of comp range, you know you want to get rid of it. And some dealers out there may give that to you like that. Some might be lower. I would say we're not like that. We're not usually ever paying lower than those ranges. But I would say there's some dealers out there that are looking to get things for 30 and 40%. Now, Sunday at the National, if you're looking for cash, you might be in those ranges, because you might have a bunch of, you know, junk slabs or things that you want to move. So that may not be the best time to sell them. But you know what you want, and you know what you're willing to take for it. Just consider all the factors. You're not going to have to think about that stuff while you're at the National if you move it quick. You're not going to have to lug it around. You're not going to have to stop at multiple booths. So the easier you are to maybe move that, the quicker it is, it will help you in the long run, trust me. Maybe your goal is not that. Maybe it's not quick funds and liquidity. Maybe it's, how do I get the highest offer for this special 101? How do I get the most bang for this really sick gold Ellie De La Cruz PSA 10 first Bowman Chrome? You know, maybe that's you. That's okay, and I applaud you for that, because I think that that's gonna take time, and you know that. But to literally walk around the National and that be the only thing you do, I would hope that it's gonna be worth your time, because it will take time. Remember, when you go to sell something at someone's booth, it's not a quick sit down, you know, here, what are you gonna pay? Like, it happens in 10 seconds. Sometimes you're waiting in lines. I know at our booth, sometimes we've had lines of 5, 10, 12, 15 people waiting to sell us stuff. Now, granted, we buy it, but it takes time, right? So make sure that you're valuing that time for how much you're going to kind of walk it around. And on the flip side of that, it could backfire on you. Let me give you an example. I've had many people come up to me and say, Jameel, check it out. Rare, 1 of 1, special, BGS 10, Pop 1, you know, blah, 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 all those things. Game used, Hall of Fame, all those things, all those terms we know. And they say, I want $10,000 for this. And maybe my offer is $7,500. I don't know, I'm just giving you some numbers. And they say, okay, I'm gonna think about it. And usually I'll say to somebody on a high-end purchase like that, that's fine, you can think about it. But just know, if I don't see you again in the next, I don't know, couple hours, maybe even 15, 30 minutes, depending on the day and the time and how crazy it is, I may not make that offer back to you, because I know I gave you my strongest offer. Many times people have come back to me on lower end stuff, right? 200 bucks, 400 bucks, 50 bucks, whatever. We've given them a really strong offer on a card, and they've come back the next day and say they'll take our offer. And I say, unfortunately, I'm sorry. Like, I know that I'm competing with everybody here, so I'm not going to do that now. I'm sorry. I gave you my best foot forward when when I first saw you. I wasn't playing games. I gave you my best offer. So that can backfire sometimes. So take away from that is simply just be mindful. Don't let your time backfire on you by you shopping around and then coming back to somebody who then at that time may not want to spend it. They may not have the funds to buy it. That's another thing that could happen too. Another thing that I'd encourage you guys to think about is selling as early as you possibly can, not later. Funds do move a lot in the National, and just like a piece of bread that comes out the oven on Wednesday when the National starts, that same piece of bread is a little stale on Sunday or Saturday afternoon, right? So be mindful of that, you know, as you're selling things. The offers will get lesser. The offers will be fewer in terms of quantity and the less things they may want to buy from you. Let's talk quickly about comps and percentages of comps, because I know that is something so many people think everyone just lives and dies by. There might have been a time, right, during COVID for me that you were just buying cards at, let's say, 75 to 85% depending on what they were. The market has completely changed, and I would venture to say in this day and age, what is a comp? Because there is so much market manipulation that happens, as you guys know. Market manipulation happens at the National. Someone has a card, they sell it on eBay, they get their buddy off Instagram to buy it, and then they don't pay for it, and then they show that as a comp at the National when they're trying. So I've seen that happen many times. Show bids, you guys know the whole 9 yards. But I would encourage you guys to think, what is the true comp of my card? What is this really worth today? Should I pull a comp from 3 months ago on a Patrick Mahomes card? Yeah, that's probably gonna be a little bit more than that. Should I pull a comp on a Luka Doncic card from, you know, beginning of last season? No, because he looked like the MVP, right? So there's things that, you know, as you're bringing these to dealers and you're looking at an evaluation of a card, the dealer knows what they're doing. Card ladder, I mean, there's so many good tools out now that are looking at manipulation of data, aggregation of data, and there's also so many bad tools. I'm not going to go into name of them. I'm not looking to create drama on the platforms, but there's a lot of bad tools out there too that don't really give you the right access. So if you're looking at the wrong tools, just know this: if you're trying to hammer a nail in with a wrench, it's probably gonna be a little hard, right? So think about that as you guys are comping things and make sure you're using the right tools. Two that I would recommend very specifically would be Card Ladder, like I said. TerraPeak is great. The eBay tool lets you look at older sales data as well, and we'll leave it at that. What's the standard for dealers when they're buying in a percentage of comp? I would say, after you've kind of understood what the true value is of the card, I would say the percentage is somewhere, I would say most people at the National in 2023 July are going to be paying between 65% and probably 75, 80%. I think that's the range in which most people are going to be buying from a buying standpoint, a dealer standpoint. You might find some repackers that might pay 80 to 85%. You might find some guy at a manufacturer corporate booth who might pay more for, you know, some more liquid stuff. It is what it is. That's kind of how it is. But I think it's key to understand that there's no set in stone engraved doctrinal percentage that any dealer is paying. I would say for me, if it's a card I really want, I will creep up into those 80, 90% levels. If it's a card I really want, if it's a card I think is very liquid, if it's something that I think I can do well with, if it's something that I really want, if it's something that I don't want and you're trying to force it on me and it's a huge mega lot and you want, you know, 75% of comps on 75 slabs, that's just not going to happen, especially if those slabs are not easy to sell. So these are things that you just got to think about. I think a good rule of thumb, everybody out there, is to kind of think 60 to 80%. That's kind of the range that most people are buying comps at. Most negotiations happen at 87, 85% because most people come up and say, well, the last comp is this, so I'm going to pay you 85% of that because that's what the seller got. So think about those things, you know, when it comes to you reselling it. I think I always tell people this one statement when I'm buying is that I have to resell this. So I have to show them the same comps that you're trying to show me at, right? This is a $110 card. You're telling me it's $175. It really isn't a $175 card. So I've got to buy it at a percentage off of $110. Those are just kind of how things are in the card world. And it is a lot harder to sell, as you guys know. Things have gotten tougher. Cards have gone down. So be mindful of all those things. Do you have graded cards or do you have raw cards? In our shop, we got tons and tons of raw cards. There are deals in here. These are, sometimes you'll find $10, $20 cards. There are 50-cent cards in our shop. Why am I telling you that? Raw cards do not carry the premium that graded cards carry. If you haven't figured this out, think about it. Think about the idea of graded cards are encapsulated. There's an objective number on the condition and value of the card. Raw cards do not have that. Now, I get it. Older cards, vintage, 90s inserts, some stuff like that doesn't make sense to grade sometimes because they may be low grade. But for 95% of the stuff that we see, if you're trying to sell a raw card as a graded card, it's not going to work at the National. Trust me. There are so many people that are keen on it being easy. Oh, it's an easy 10. It's easy 10 or easy 9, whatever. It's not. It's not until you've paid the fee and you've waited the time and you've got it in your hand that way. Now, don't get me wrong. There are cards that I'll buy and I'll want to grade them. But I think if you're looking for that when it comes to comps and selling and all that, you're going to have a hard time. I think a really good rule of thumb is if you show up on the Wednesday or Thursday of the National and you have a raw card that's valuable, 500, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000, whatever, go to one of the card companies and get a raw card review done. I think that's such a beautiful aspect of the National is the RCR. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Beckett offers a RCR where they put it in the semi-rigid with a little gold or the silver or whatever tape that they put on top of it, gives it the grade. I believe SGC did that last year at the National. I don't think CSG does it or PSA does it, but you have two options right there from mainline grading companies that can do a raw card review for you. And the nice thing about a raw card review is you have now an objective number that you can take to people when you go to sell it. Think about that. That might save you a lot of headache in terms of the negotiation aspect. Go back and watch episode 2 when we talk about negotiation. But when you're selling stuff, if you bring something to me as an RCR and it says 9 on it, that's good. I mean, I'm glad that it says 9. I don't have to think about it much. I know that's a mint card. You know what I mean? And I think that will help you as you deal in the selling at the National. Fourth point I like to make today. We've talked about the goals. We've talked about percentage of comps. We've talked about raw versus graded. But fourth point I want to make, and I want you to think about this. Please hear me out. This is not to better me, but it's to better you. Sometimes you have to lose to gain. What I mean by that is that when you have cards that you know you've taken a loss on, and you know they're hard to sell or they're hard to move or someone's hurt, take the loss and convert it into a gain. I'm telling you, at the National, you can take your losses and make them gains so quickly. So many times people will say to me, Jameel, I got out of this lot, I got out of this card, and I was able to get this. And they're so happy. And it's like, that's awesome. Nice come up or nice add to your PC. You literally took something that was hard to sell, collecting dust, going down, you took a loss on it, and you converted it into something you want. That's really what the hobby is about, is finding things that we want, finding things that we're excited about, and you can do that so easily at this marketplace. So encourage you to do that. And to close out this episode, episode 3, we're going to have our episode conclusion, episode 4, coming out soon. Be sure to check that out in a few days. We're going to talk about how to enjoy the National. But the last point I want to make is please put in your minds, the forefront, your frontal lobe, that we are now in a very different market. We are not in 2020 to 2021. We are no longer there. We've come down. We've settled. The market has rebounded in a negative way, right? It is I don't say negative way. It's rebounded into a more manageable, it's a more consistent way of looking at cards. We're no longer at these, incredible peaks, incredible valleys. We're now at a set kind of run of cards. I think we're leveling off. And if you think about our market and where we're at today, just recognize maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, it was crazy. It was wild. It was fun. You were making a lot of money. It was easy. Now things are different. And that will help you when you are selling cards at the National. That will help you understand. So many times I've heard people lose deals over 5%, 3%, whatever it is, or just kind of ego or pride or whatever it may be. If you can get rid of something that you don't want and you're looking to move, it's a win. It is a W. You are doing well, and you can take that resource and at the National do amazing things with it. I tell you stories of high school kids, college kids that go to the National and they may start with $500. They may start with $5,000. They may start with $10,000. And by the end of the National, they have triple that money or triple that asset liquidity. And I think that's amazing, right? If you can do that, I'm all props for you. That's so cool. That's kind of how I got my starters, trading and buying and selling and all those things that I did at these card shows. So that's episode 3, selling at the National. Hopefully you got some quick pointers from it. If you don't agree with me, that's okay too. Put it in the comments. Let's talk about it. I think that that's the best part about all this. And hope to see you at the National. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We'll be there all 5 days. See you.